Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we are continuing with the read aloud of Life and Death Twilight Reimagined with chapter 19, which is called Goodbyes. But before we begin the reading, I just have to make the quick disclaimer that I do not own any of the text being presented here, nor am I trying to present any of the text as my own. This is all simply a read aloud that I'm doing on the channel for entertainment purposes, and it's all in fair use. And once again, Life and Death Twilight Reimagined is owned by Stephenie Meyer, and this is chapter 19, Goodbyes. It looked like Charlie was waiting up for me. All the house lights were on. My mind went blank as I tried to think of a way to pull this off. Edith stopped a car length back from my truck. All three of them were ramrod straight in their seats, listening to every sound of the forest, looking through every shadow around the house, searching for something out of place. The engine died, and I sat quietly as they continued to listen. "She's not here," Edith hissed. "Let's go." Eleanor reached over to undo the harness. "Don't worry, Beau," she said in a low but cheerful voice. "We'll take care of things here quickly." I felt the strangest sense of sadness as I looked at Eleanor's gorgeous and terrifying face. I barely knew her, but somehow not knowing when I would see her again was awful. I knew this was the easiest goodbye I would have to survive in the next hour, and the thought made my stomach churn. "Archie, Elle." Edith's voice was a command. They slipped soundlessly into the darkness and were gone. I crawled out after Eleanor, and Edith was already there. 15 minutes, she said through her teeth. I nodded, then stopped. "Hurry, Beau." "One thing." I bent down and kissed her once, hard. "I love you. Whatever happens now, that doesn't change. Nothing is going to happen to you, Beau. Keep Charlie safe for me. Done. Hurry." I nodded again, and then, with one backward glance at her, I jumped onto the porch and threw the front door open with a loud bang. I lurched inside and kicked the door shut behind me. I suddenly knew what I was going to do, and I was already horrified at myself. Charlie's face appeared in the hallway. "Beau, leave me alone!" I snapped. My eyes were starting to feel red and wet, and I knew I was going to have to get it together if I was going to do this right. Protect Charlie, protect the Cullens, and make this plan work. It would be easier if I wasn't looking at him. I wheeled and ran up the stairs, then slammed my bedroom door closed and locked it. I threw myself on the floor and yanked a duffel bag out from under the bed. Then I shoved my hand between the mattress and box spring, searching till I found the knotted tube sock with my cash hoard. Charlie pounded on my door. "Beau, are you okay? What's going on? I'm going home!" I yelled. I turned to the dresser, and Edith was already there, silently yanking out armfuls of clothes that she then threw at me. I caught what I could and stuffed it into the bag. "So I guess your date didn't go so well." Charlie's voice was confused but calmer. "Ugh, stay out of it, Charlie!" I growled. "Did she break up with you? I broke up with her!" Edith didn't react to what I was saying. She was totally focused. She swept my stuff off the top of the dresser and into the bag with one arm. "Why?" Charlie asked, surprised. "I thought you really liked this girl." "I do. Too much." That's not how that works, son." Edith zipped the bag up. Apparently my packing time was over. She hung the strap on my shoulder. I'll be in the truck. Go!" she whispered, and she pushed me toward the door. She vanished out the window. I unlocked the door and shoved past Charlie. My bag knocked a picture off the wall as I hurtled down the stairs. Charlie ran after me and grabbed the strap of my bag, hauling me back a step. "Are you doing drugs, Beau?" he demanded. "No! Slow down. I don't understand. Tell me what happened." He had a tight grip on the strap. I could leave it, but that would put a hole in my story. I was going to have to do this the hard way. I turned to look at him, hoping the red in my eyes only looked like anger. "I'll tell you what happened," I said in the hardest voice I could manage. "I had a great night with the prettiest girl I've ever seen, and we talked about the future. The way she sees it, it's just like you. She's going to stay here the rest of her life. She's going to get married and have kids and never leave. And for a second, that all actually made sense to me. I'm losing myself here. I'm getting sucked in. If I don't run now, I'll never get out. Beau, you can't leave now," he whispered. "It's nighttime. I'll sleep in the truck if I get tired. Just wait another week," he pleaded, looking shell-shocked. "Renee will be back by then." This completely derailed me. What? Relief flashed across Charlie's face when I hesitated. She called while you were out. Things aren't going so well in Florida, and if Phil doesn't get signed by the end of the week, they're going back to Arizona. The assistant coach of the Sidewinders said they might have a spot for another shortstop. I shook my head, trying to get back on track. Every passing second put Charlie in more danger. I have a key, I muttered, turning the knob. He was too close, one hand still locked on my bag, his face dazed. I couldn't lose any more time arguing with him. I was going to have to hurt him further. Just let me go, Charlie, I said through my teeth. I threw the door open. It didn't work out, okay? I really, really hate forks. The cruel words did their job. Charlie's hand dropped from my bag. His mouth fell open with surprise while a deep pain surfaced in his eyes. I turned my back on him and stalked out the door. I couldn't let him see my face now. I tried to keep my walk angry, but I wanted to sprint. The dark yard seemed full of extra shadows that I was pretty sure were just my imagination, but not totally positive. I hurled my bag into the bed of the truck and wrenched the door open. The key was waiting in the ignition. I'll call you tomorrow, I yelled. I would never be able to explain this to him, never be able to make it right again. I gunned the engine and peeled out. Edith reached for my hand. Pull over, she said as Charlie in the house disappeared behind us. I kept my eyes on the road, trying to control my face. I can drive. Suddenly she was sliding over my lap, her hands on the wheel and her foot pushing mine off the gas. She moved into the space between my leg and the door, then shoved me over with her hip. The truck didn't swerve an inch, and she was in the driver's seat. You wouldn't be able to find the house, she explained. You wouldn't be able to find the house, she explained. Lights flared behind us. I jumped and stared out the back window. It's just Archie, she said. She took my hand again. When I closed my eyes, all I could see was Charlie standing in the doorway. The tracker? She caught the end of your performance. She's running behind us now, about a mile back. My body felt cold. Can we outrun her? No. But she sped up as she spoke. The truck's engine whined. My plan wasn't feeling so brilliant anymore. I was staring back at Archie's headlights when the truck shuddered and a dark shadow sprang up outside the window. Ah! Eh! Her hand clamped over my mouth before I could finish shouting the warning. It's Eleanor! She dropped her hand to my knee. It's okay, Beau, she promised. We raced out of town, headed north. I didn't realize you were still so bored with small-town life, she said conversationally, and I knew she was trying to distract me. It seems like you were adjusting fairly well, especially recently. Maybe I was just flattering myself that I was making life more interesting for you. That was below the belt, I confessed, staring at my knees. Those were the last words my mother said to him when she left. It would have done less damage if I'd punched him. He'll forgive you, she promised. I closed my eyes. Beau, it's going to be all right. I looked down at her. It won't be all right when we're not together. It's only a few days. Don't forget this was your idea. That makes it worse. Why did this happen? I don't understand. She stared at the road ahead, her eyebrows pulling low over her eyes. It's my fault. I shouldn't have exposed you like that. I grabbed her hand. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, I was there. Big deal. It didn't bother the other two. Why did Joss decide to kill me? There are people all over the place. People who are a lot easier to get to. I glanced over my shoulder at Eleanor's shadow. Why am I worth all this trouble? Edith hesitated, thinking before she answered. I got a good look at her mind tonight, she said in a low voice. I'm not sure if there's anything I could have done to avoid this. When she caught your scent, it is partially your fault. She looked at me from the corner of her eye for a second. If you didn't smell so ridiculously delicious, she might not have bothered. But when I defended you, well, that made it a lot worse. She's not used to being thwarted, no matter how insignificant the object. She thinks of herself as a hunter, as the hunter. Her life is consumed with tracking, and a challenge is what she loves best in life. Suddenly, we presented her with an amazing challenge. A large clan of strong fighters, all determined to protect the one vulnerable element. You don't know how euphoric she is right now. It's her favorite game, and we've just created the most exciting round ever. Her tone was full of disgust. She took a deep breath. But if I had stood by, she would have killed you right then, she hissed with frustration. I thought I didn't smell the same to the others. as I do to you. You don't, but that doesn't mean you aren't still a temptation to every one of them. If you had appealed to the tracker, or any of them, the same way you appeal to me, it would have meant a fight right there. I shuddered. I don't think I have any choice but to kill her now, she muttered. Corrine won't like it. I don't like it, I whispered. She looked at me, surprised. You want me to spare her? I blinked. No, I mean, yes, I don't care if she dies. I mean, that would be a relief, right? I just don't want you to. What if you get hurt? Her face went hard. You don't have to worry about me. I don't fight fair. I could hear the tires cross the bridge, though I couldn't see the river in the dark. I knew we were getting close. How do you kill a vampire? I asked in a low voice. She glanced at me. Her eyes were hard to read. When she spoke, her voice was harsh. The only way to be sure is to tear her to shreds and then burn the pieces. And the other two will fight with her? The male will. I'm not sure about Lauren. They don't have a very strong bond. She's only with them for convenience. She was embarrassed by Joss's behavior in the meadow. But Joss and Victor, they'll be trying to kill you? My voice was raw, like I'd sandblasted the back of my throat. Stop! You focus on staying safe. You do whatever Archie tells you. How am I supposed to not worry about you? What does that even mean, that you don't fight fair? She half smiled. It didn't touch her eyes. Have you ever tried to act without thinking of that first act? Aside from involuntary muscle actions like breathing and blinking, it's terribly difficult to do, especially in a fight. I'll see everything she plans, every hole in her defense. The only one who can hold his own against me is Archie, since he can see what I decide to do, but then I can hear how he'll react. It's usually a draw. Eleanor says it's cheating. She seemed relaxed, like the idea of finding the hunter and her partner was the easiest part of this whole mess. It made my stomach twist and plunge. Should Archie stay with you then? I asked, if he's a better fighter than the others. Eleanor can hear all this, you know. She's offended and also not thrilled with that idea. It's been a while since she was allowed to really brawl. No holds barred. She plans to keep me and my cheating ways out of this as much as possible. That made me feel a little bit better, which wasn't fair to Eleanor. I looked over my shoulder again, but I couldn't see her expression. Is she still following? I asked. Edith knew I wasn't talking about Eleanor. Yes, she won't attack the house, though. Not tonight. She turned onto the invisible drive. Archie's headlights followed. We drove right up to the house. The lights inside were bright, but they didn't do much to light up the surrounding trees. The yard was still black. Eleanor had my door open before the truck was stopped. She pulled me out of the seat, ducked under my arm, threw her arm around my waist, then ran me through the front door with my feet a foot off the ground, like I was a giant rag doll. She burst into the big white room with Edith and Archie on either side. All of them were there, already on their feet. Lauren stood in the middle of their circle. A low snarl rumbled in Eleanor's chest as she set me next to Edith. She's tracking us, Edith hissed, glaring at Lauren. Lauren's expression was unhappy. I was afraid of that. Archie darted to Jessamyn's side and whispered in her ear. They flew up the stairs together. Royal watched them, then moved quickly to Eleanor's side. His eyes were intense, and, when they flickered unwillingly to my face, hostile. What will she do? Corrine asked Lauren. I'm sorry, she answered. I was afraid when your girl there defended him that it would set Joss off. Can you stop her? Lauren shook her head. Nothing stops Joss when she gets started. We'll stop her, Eleanor promised. There was no doubt what she meant. You can't bring her down, Lauren answered. I've never seen anything like her in my 300 years. She's absolutely lethal. That's why they joined her coven. Her coven, I thought, of course. That whole show of leadership in the clearing was just that, a show. Lauren was shaking her head. She glanced at me, obviously confused. Are you sure this is all worth it? Edith's furious growl tore through the room. Lauren cringed away from her. Corrine looked at Lauren. I'm afraid you're going to have to make a choice. Lauren understood. She hesitated for a minute. She looked at every face, then at the bright room. I'm intrigued by the life you've created here, but I won't get in the middle of this. I bear none of you any enemy, but I won't go up against Joss. I think I will head north, to that clan in Denali. She paused. Don't underestimate Joss. She's got a brilliant mind and unparalleled senses. She's wild, but she's every bit as comfortable in the human world as you seem to be. She won't come at you head on. I'm sorry for what's been unleashed here. Truly sorry. She bowed her head, but I saw her flicker another puzzled look at me. Go in peace, Corrine said. Lauren took one more long look around the room, and then she disappeared through the door. The silence lasted less than a second. Corrine looked at Edith. How close? Ernest was already moving. His hand touched a keypad on the wall, and with a groan, huge metal shutters began sealing up the glass wall. My mouth fell open. About 3 miles out past the river. She's circling around to meet up with the mail. What's the plan? We lead her off, and then Archie and Jessamine will run him south. And then? Edith's voice turned icy. As soon as Bo is clear, we hunt her. We lead her off. Okay, I read that right, yeah. We hunt her. I guess she's left us no other choice. Corrine agreed, her expression grim. Edith looked at Royal. Get him upstairs and trade clothes. Royal stared back at her incredulous. And why would I do that? He asked. What is he to me? Roy, Eleanor murmured, putting one hand on his shoulder. He shook it off. My eyes were on Edith, worried that this would set off her temper, but she surprised me. She looked away from Royal like he hadn't spoken, like he didn't exist. Ernest? She asked calmly. Of course. And as he was speaking, he was already at my side and ducking to grab me in a fireman's hold. We were up the stairs before I could register what was happening. What are we doing? I asked as he set me down in a dark room somewhere off the second-story hall. Trying to confuse the scent trail. It won't work for long, but it might give you a head start. His voice was muffled as he pulled his shirt over his head. I yanked my sweater off and held it out to him. He switched mine for his. I struggled to get my arms through the right holes, then yanked my jeans off. We traded. His pants were a little too short, but otherwise fit fine. He pulled me back to the hall. Ernest looked smaller in my clothes. He'd rolled the bottoms of my jeans. Archie was already there. A leather satchel hung over his arm. They each grabbed one of my elbows and flew down the stairs. It looked like everything had been settled. Edith and Eleanor were ready to leave, Eleanor carrying a big backpack over her shoulder. Corrine handed something small to Ernest. She turned to Archie and handed him the same thing, a tiny silver cell phone. Ernest and Royal will be taking your truck, Bo, she told me as she passed. I nodded, glancing warily at Royal. He was glaring at Corrine, resentful. Archie, Jess, take the Mercedes. You'll need the dark tint in the south. They nodded. We'll take the Jeep. Corrine stopped next to Edith. I realized that this was the hunting party, and I felt I was going to throw up. How did it get this point? How did they get to this point? Why had they listened to my idea? It was obviously wrong. Archie, will they take the bait? Everyone watched Archie as he closed his eyes and became incredibly still. A few seconds later, his eyes opened again. She'll track you. The man will follow the truck. We'll be able to leave after that. He was positive. Let's go, Corrine said, heading for the kitchen. But Edith came back for me. She stared up at me, her gold eyes huge and deep and full of a million words she didn't have time to say, and reached up to put her hands on my face. I leaned down, my hands already in her hair, for the shortest second. Her lips were icy and hard against mine. Then it was over. She pushed my shoulders back. Her eyes went blank, dead, just before she turned away from me. They were gone. We stood there, no one looking at me while I stared after them. It felt like someone had ripped all the skin off my face. My eyes burned. The silent moment dragged. Archie's eyes were closed again. Then Ernest's phone vibrated in his hand, and Archie nodded once. The phone flashed to Ernest's ear. Now, he said. Royal stalked out the front door without another glance in my direction, but Ernest touched my shoulder as he passed. Be safe. His whisper lingered behind them as they slipped out the door. I heard the truck start thunderously, and then the sound faded away. Jessamine and Archie waited. Then Archie lifted his phone to his ear just before it buzzed. Edith says the man is on Ernest's trail. I'll get the car. He vanished into the shadows, the way Edith had gone. Jessamine and I looked at each other. She stood across the length of the entryway from me. You're wrong, you know, she said. Huh? I can feel what you're feeling now. And you are worth it. The feeling of being slowly skinned didn't let up. If anything happens to them, it will be for nothing, I whispered. She smiled kindly. You're wrong, she repeated. Archie stepped through the front door and walked straight toward me, one arm out. May I? He asked. You're the first one to ask permission, I mumbled. Archie slung me up into a fireman's carry like Ernest had, and, with Justin shielding us protectively, flew out the door, leaving the lights on behind us. Okay, so obviously there's differences made to this chapter in particular, like obviously carrying Bo around, even though they probably are more than likely able to, like the same way that they do with Bella in the book. Obviously, like, no, absolutely not. Like, don't go cradling him around, for God's sake. Like, that, no, absolutely not. So I like the decision for the fireman's lift as opposed to, bridal style. Thank God for that change, because let's be honest, how much more embarrassing that would be to him to be carried the same way that Bella gets carried around, Like, let's be honest there. But I do have to say that I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of the differences to this. Like, obviously, there were a few subtle differences. I mean, Royal, he gives less words than even Rosalie did, He just simply asks, like, what is he to me? You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't even need to say the rest of it. But, of course, Bo, he's still worrying about Edith and her safety. He is still worrying about the fact that she is on the hunting party and that this is how it's gonna go. The 3 girls. That makes it, like, even worse, knowing that 3 females are gonna be hunting Joss. Like, that just makes it even worse, because knowing that it's 3 girls, Kareen, and then, of course, Eleanor, and then, of course, Edith. Like, the 3 of them, knowing that they're girls and that they're going to be part of this hunting party, like, how does that not leave you unsettled, knowing that girls are going to be getting in on the fight, of course? Like, it's definitely a very unsettling thing to think about females getting violent and aggressive for obvious reasoning. Like, I don't blame Bo for feeling nauseous over the idea of his girlfriend and her mother and her sister getting into a type of physical confrontation like this. Like, I personally, like, worry too, because obviously with girls, it's different, because the whole thing is that, like, when it comes to women, when it comes to females, as somebody who is a female who does do martial arts, as somebody who spars in Taekwondo point sparring now as a yellow belt, I can say that as girls, like, there's definitely a sense of hesitation when it comes to guys, like, beating up on women, in particular in Taekwondo point sparring. Like, one of my sparring partners, like, he always, like, for some reason softens up on me in particular, but when I'm facing another female, like one of the CIs at my school, then, we go at each other just as hard and just as powerful, because her power matches up with my power in particular. But even so, like, I'm still at the point where it's like, okay, just do something, oh shit, don't die. Like, even if you forget all the technique and everything, just do something for the sake of, like, your safety and making sure that you don't get punched in the nose. Like, that is basically, like, the whole mindset of somebody who is a lower rank, who is the youngest rank in the entire school. But the whole thing with women and fighting and all of that, and sparring and everything that comes with it, of course, the idea of women getting in on beating, the crap out of each other, like, it's definitely much more terrifying when you think about it that way, because, let's be real, the idea of any women getting into anything physical, it's uncomfortable, even more so than guys getting physical with each other. Like, you can almost expect men to get into, like, a very physical confrontation, but women, when they fight with, like, hair pulling and, like, scratching each other's eyes out, it's even worse than watching 2 men brawl. Like, watching women brawl, it's a lot more terrifying, because, let's be dead honest, girl fights, chick fights are, like, even worse. Like, it's so disturbing to even, like, look at. Like, look up the movie Girl Fight with Jodelle Ferland, who played Bree Tanner Banner in Twilight Eclipse. She plays the lead in that movie with Anne Hesh, the late Anne Hesh, and her then husband at the time. She played Anne Hesh's daughter in the movie Girl Fight. But, like, what makes that movie so disturbing is the fact that you're watching this, like, pack of girls beat up on someone who is a girl but is so much, like, smaller, and she's doing anything she can to defend herself, and they're taunting her, you know, fight back, and it's absolutely sickening to even imagine looking at, because the idea of any, like, girls getting physical and fighting, it's so much more disturbing than men getting into a brawl. But girls, it's like, because you just have such a hard time reconciling the idea of girls getting physical with each other. Like, I think that just goes back to the whole gender roles thing of girls are supposed to be, like, I don't want to say weaker, but definitely in the sense of they're not supposed to, like, be super pissed all the time. They're supposed to be a little bit more delicate in their nature. But with men, it's almost conceived that they're going to be, like, rough and tumble and everything. It's like that whole thing with the gender roles, again, that Stephenie Meyer is playing with here, where it shows Edith to be just as aggressive as Royal or Archie in a fight, ultimately. And overall, it's just, like, again, it's playing up, like, that factor to the entire thing. The idea of women being physically, like, capable of this sort of thing. And it's definitely a disturbing thing to even imagine and think about. But overall, like, it definitely does add to the unsettling feeling of the entire thing. But again, I have to say that this chapter was very, like, heartbreaking to read, because I know how the story ends. I know that there's an alternate ending to it. And to think that these are the last words that Beau had exchanged with Charlie, like, telling him, you know, oh, I'm leaving. I don't want to get stuck in this stupid town. I really, really hate Forks. You know, the fact that he hurt Charlie so much and that those were the last words that he said to him, like, oh my god, like, that makes it so much more devastating in this book as opposed to the first Twilight. Because at least in the first Twilight, you know, Bella, she may escape with, like, a broken leg and a few broken ribs. You know, she survived. She was alive at the end of that. But who knows how the ending ends up playing out here, because obviously Joss had to have hurt Beau so badly that the only option left would be to let him change, because if he didn't change, he would probably end up dead from the injuries. So that's, like, the only thing that I can possibly think of in this scenario. But obviously, like, it's disturbing to even try thinking about. And we have chapter 20 to go. We have chapter 21. We have chapter 23. And then we have chapter 24. So we have at least 5 chapters left to go here, and I'm debating, like, I honest to God think that I'm going to be finishing this by next week, and then I can move on to New Moon. I would say by Monday or Tuesday at the very least. Like, if I read like 2 chapters tomorrow, and I wake up to my alarm, because today I fell asleep until, like, today it's the 15th of December, and I basically, like, fell asleep till, like, 12 in the afternoon today. I really, really slept in. And I also, on my part, also, another decision that I made was I watched the Mortal Instruments City of Bones movie that's on Netflix, because it gets removed after December 31st. So I was like, you know what? Do I really want to subject myself to the bad movie adaptation of one of Cassandra Clare's most brilliant works for the sake of Jamie Campbell Bower? But I have to say that I really, really actually enjoyed the Mortal Instruments movie a lot more than I realized I would. Like, I have to say, Jason Clary and that first kiss that they share, oh my god. Like, I never cry over kissing scenes, but Jason Clary, my freaking heart, my heart, like, oh, my heart, yeah. So I think that that's the series that I'm going to read next on the channel if I want to do more read-alouds. I think that what I'll consider doing is reading the Mortal Instruments for the first time and, like, letting myself react to the Mortal Instruments. But at the same time, I want to bring back more scripted content to the channel as well. Like, I definitely want to discuss the Twilight movies and see how they compare to the books as well. I definitely want to bring comic book content back to this channel because this was how the channel started to begin with. But overall, like, this channel isn't just for comic books or Twilight or Harry Potter or any of the above. It's all together. And at the end of the day, this channel is basically for my own pleasure, and it's for all the different types of literature that I enjoy reading. And currently I'm on the Power Rangers comic books right now, but overall, just this channel has definitely evolved over time, and the fact that I hit over 500 subscribers says a lot about how far it's gotten over the past, like, 10 odd years, I think, since I started it. Because think about it, I started this when I was a senior in high school in the year of 2016 or 2015, I want to say, is when I graduated from high school. So we're talking about a few odd years here, but overall, just, like, the channel has definitely evolved into something so much more. And I'm really, really excited for the turn that it's taking with the Read Aloud series, because it's definitely been growing my channel base in a way that I never expected it would. But overall, I do want to bring more scripted content back. I want to bring gaming content back. I want to bring stage makeup content back. Like, there's a lot of different types of content that I want to cover again that needs to get back onto the channel. Like, it can't just be a read aloud channel. Like, it needs to be so much more than that. So overall, I'm going to be thinking about the direction that I want to take my YouTube channel into in the new year. Like, I have a lot of different ideas for how the channel can be changed up a little bit more, and the direction that I can take with my blog and everything. Like, I just want to see what kinds of different content that I can bring to the channel to make it more than just, like, completely one note, because obviously the read alouds are fun, but I don't just want it to be that overall. So I think by the time the new year comes around, I'm going to be thinking up plenty of new ideas for lots of new videos. Lots of new content is going to get put on here, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what it is that I'm going to bring. I definitely want to bring Percy Jackson content back, because Percy Jackson, the TV show, is going to be airing on Disney Plus in another year or so, and also we have The Last of Us television series on HBO Max, which is going to be in January. And obviously, you know, I played The Last of Us. I played The Last of Us Part 2, and I definitely want to see how the show compares, how it compares, mostly because I saw that they brought Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker into the cast. So obviously, there's a lot that I want to discuss with The Last of Us TV show, because The Last of Us, the first Last of Us game, got me through the COVID-19 pandemic within, like, the first few months, when I found out that they were making this game that seemed to be the model for the Logan movie into a TV show. And it was the game that got me through the COVID-19 lockdowns. So obviously I need to watch The Last of Us show and see how it compares and see if it's going to be any good. Because let's be honest, I want to see it succeed. But season 2, like, you guys already know my thoughts and my feelings on The Last of Us Part 2. You already know how I feel about that. I've posted content on the channel in the past that talked about it, even though it's not visible anymore because I took it down old for all, because I just wanted to take the channel into a different, more, like, neutralized direction. But overall, this is going to be the new direction that my channel is going to be taking. Obviously, the read alouds are not going away anytime soon, but definitely expect different kinds of content to come in the new year when the year of 2023 comes in. So overall, that's it. God bless, happy viewing, and Have a nice day, everybody. See ya!